In 1885, the partition of Africa initiated with the Berlin Conference marked the beginning of a dark period for the African continent, when the European colonial powers sought to exploit the maximum wealth and impose their domination. But in the midst of this unforgiving storm, one man rises like a titan, ruling a powerful empire known as the Wassoulou. This fearless leader was ready to challenge colonial oppression with all his might. His name still resonates in the lands of West Africa, Samory Touré. Originally from the Monde Kingdom, this man categorically refused to submit to an unfair and humiliating division. But how did this son of a shopkeeper manage to hold his ground for more than 15 years in an epic fight against these foreign forces determined to conquer the country? In this video, let's dive into the exceptional story of Samory Touré, the African emperor who dared to challenge the colonial powers for the independence and dignity of his people. Nothing, however, destined this man from a family of merchants to become a great warrior. Born around 1830 in Miniambuladuga, a mysterious village southeast of Kankan in present-day Guinea, Samory Touré spent his youth traveling around the region, selling the cotton fabrics carefully woven by his father. The son of Lofia Touré and Messorona Komara, Samory grew up at a time when West Africa was in the midst of a transformation, and when contacts and exchanges with Europeans were changing the economic, artisanal and commercial landscape. But Samory's life took an unexpected turn when he was still a teenager. His people became embroiled in a conflict with a neighboring clan led by the fearsome king, Ki-Zerbo of the Cissé clan. During the fighting, his mother was captured and enslaved by Ki-Zerbo, the enemy of his people, while his father went into exile in another village. Without the resources to buy her mother's freedom, Samory makes a difficult choice. He agreed to serve under Ki-Zerbo in exchange for a chance to train in the arts of war and learn how to handle weapons. Enlisted in the royal army, he converted to Islam and immersed himself in the study of the Quran. Samory quickly proved himself on the battlefield, earning the respect of Ki-Zerbo, the ruling leader, but arousing the distrust of his own brother, Ki-Zerbo. Samory puts himself at their service for 7 years, 7 months, 7 days, according to tradition, before finally being able to free his mother. However, once his mission is accomplished, Samory decides to take a completely different path. He left the Cissé and joined the army of the Barit, their sworn enemies, before finally joining his own people, the Komara. Asserting his independence from Ki-Zerbo, Samory gradually gained the growing support of the Malinki chiefs thanks to his vision of unity. Patiently, he began to build an empire, using persuasion, threats, and war, as the legendary Sanjota Keita had done in Mali, to expand the Mandinka state. Samory is given titles that embody both a consecration of his past and a project for the future. He is first the Kolitigi, warlord, then the Murutigui, master of the sword, and finally the former, the undisputed sovereign. He solemnly took an oath to protect his people against the Barit and the Cissé. Aware of the importance of a powerful army, he created a professional military force and appointed his relatives, including his brothers and childhood friends, to key command positions. Gradually, Samory frees himself and forges his own path. He built a feared, organized, and powerful army, which included in its ranks the famous Sofas, uniformed soldiers with a very high reputation. Samory also had a bold vision to create a modern, centralized, and efficient state. He dreamed of a warlike and mercantile state, where wealth would be acquired through trade in goods. However, from 1864 onwards, the mysterious disappearance of El Hadj Omar Foutiyou Tall, founder of the rapidly expanding Tukula Empire, marked the beginning of a frantic struggle for control of the territories. It was in this context that Samory Touré made his debut on the scene 3 years later. Under the title of Armami, he became a respected religious and spiritual leader, uniting his Muslim faith with his political aspirations. However, 2 powerful kingdoms in the south of Monde, Diamoro Ajidayakite and Warakodo Famodu, joined forces to try to counter the rise of Samory Touré. On April 4, 1867, a legendary battle known as the Battle of Somon broke out between Samory's forces and those of his formidable opponents. It was an epic clash where kings competed for supremacy. Eventually, Samory emerged victorious from this major battle, cementing his position as a powerful military leader. Over the years, Samory continues his quest for dominance, eliminating his main competitors one by one. He established the city of Bisandugu as the capital of his flourishing empire. Through trade and diplomatic exchanges, he forged ties with the declining Tukula Empire. Samory Touré now reigns supreme over a vast and diverse territory called Wassoulou. This great empire extended over part of Guinea, Mali, Sierra Leone, Burkina Faso, Liberia, and the Ivory Coast. Its verdant hills were populated by more than 300,000 people, representing an ethnic mosaic that included the Malinki, Sanufo, Mosi, Fulani, Sosos, and many more. Only the Tukula kingdom of Amadou Chiku, son and heir of El Hadjo Mator, was a major rival. But Samory Touré was not content to build a powerful empire. He also undertook the organization of his territory using traditional and innovative methods. Samory's army even had European cannons at its disposal. It was divided into two flanks, the infantry, also called Sofa, numbering from 30,000 to 35,000 men, and the cavalry, 3,000 strong. Each unit was subdivided into permanent sections, fostering camaraderie and loyalty to local leaders. In the 1880s, the great European colonial powers embarked on a frantic race to appropriate Africa's wealth. The French colonies set their sights on Wassoulou's empire, ruled with an iron fist by Samory Touré, who was seen as a major obstacle to their expansion. In February 1882, at the height of the Mandinka Empire, the French accused Samory Touré of refusing to obey their order to withdraw from an important commercial center, Cameroon, which his army had attacked and occupied. Wounded in their honor, the French declared war on him. But Samory won't let it happen so easily. However, the army of Wassoulou knew nothing of his opponent's forces, and he later discovered that the French had formidable repeating rifles and cannons, causing countless victims in their ranks. However, true to his strategy, Samory reorganized his troops into small mobile units, which attacked and then quickly retreated into the forest. The French soldiers, caught in a pincer movement, were forced to retreat for fear of being surrounded. The disorganization of the French troops and the incessant attacks on their convoys eventually forced them to abandon their objectives. This flight of the French marked a great victory against the white invaders, strengthening Samory Touré's prestige and support. It was April 2, 1883, a day that would mark the minds of people forever. The colonial troops were defeated at the Woyowoyanko backwater. But Samory doesn't have time to savor this victory. He had to deal with his enemy's subjects who categorically refused the imposition of Islam. A war of convictions is engulfing the land, the war of refusal. In the midst of this conflict, family ties deteriorated, and the sovereign had to make tragic decisions. He even went so far as to execute his own son, Joao Karamoko, whom he suspected of betraying their cause for the French. The stakes are high, and so are the sacrifices. But Samory wouldn't be the legendary leader we still talk about today if he didn't have a disciplined, loyal, and well-organized army. As a shrewd strategist, he creates an elite force, capable of intervening with lightning speed. His mobile columns attacked and retreated without giving the enemy time to catch their breath. The years that followed offered a respite for the army. The French were trapped in a battle against the powerful army of Emperor Amadou Chiku in the Ségou region along the Niger River. In addition, they had to deal with the rebellion of Mamadou Lamine Drame, who had taken control of the Beko fort in Senegal. With limited resources to fight on all fronts, the French made the decision to negotiate. Thus, a first treaty was signed between the colonial authorities and Samory Touré on March 28, 1886 in Kanibakor. This treaty established the Niger River as the border between the French possessions and the Wassoulou Empire. The games are done, the cards are on the table, but the story is far from over, because a year later, Samory signs the Treaty of Bisandugu in which he agrees to place his country under the protection of France. But, unlike his French partners, Samory had taken this agreement very seriously. He realized that the French were not behaving as allies, but were trying to prevent any alliance between Samory and the sunning chief Mamadou Lamine, whom they were fighting at the time. The intentions of the French were clear: to make Samory disappear in order to extend their influence over the regions coveted by Britain. Faced with this betrayal, Samory mobilized his army and launched an assault on the fortified city of Sikasso, whose imposing surrounding walls, called Tota, were among the highest in the region. The purpose of this battle was to prepare to collect weapons against the French invaders. But fate has many surprises in store for him. Upon his arrival in Sikasso, Samory was impressed by the colossal scale of the fortifications. 4 m thick at the base and 4 m high. The city, initially ruled by the redoubtable King Tiba Traoré, resisted fiercely. The battle dragged on and eventually turned to Samory's disadvantage. But finally, after days of fierce fighting, Samory's troops managed to enter the city of Sikasso. But his siege was short-lived. Because of this great battle, Touré was weakened by this hard battle and decided to sign peace treaties with the French forces, including the Treaty of Niokka. As usual, the French betrayed their commitment. Indeed, in the months that followed, they won a decisive victory against the Tukula Empire. Emperor Amadou, head of the Tukula Empire, was eliminated. The French can now tackle the last hurdle, Samory Touré. Samory, clear-eyed in the face of this imminent threat, tries to adapt his army to deal with the growing power of his opponents. But will this be enough to counter the onslaught of determined French forces? From 1891 to 1897, clashes multiplied, while French columns established themselves more and more in the empire. Aware of his isolation and realizing that time was running out, Samory must rethink his strategy of resistance. This is how he decides to adopt a formidable strategy, the scorched earth tactic, intended to sow terror in the territories he crosses. He then divided his forces into 3 distinct groups. The first group, equipped with rapid-fire rifles, had to fight foot by foot to counter the French advance. A second group, armed with piston rifles, was tasked with occupying and administering the conquered territories. As for the third group, it embarked on the conquest of new lands in the east, in anticipation of a possible transfer. This scorched earth strategy had isolated Samory from its sources of modern weapons from Sierra Leone and Liberia, but it had also delayed the intervention and prosecution of the French. In March 1891, a French expedition led by Colonel Aconard launched a direct attack on Kankan, determined to put an end to this rebellious ruler once and for all. Despite the superiority of the French weaponry, the guerrilla tactics and the extensive knowledge of the terrain of the Sofas demoralized the attackers, and the offensive failed. This series of defeats annoyed the French authorities, who wanted to impose their law on the territory. In December 1891, with the help of cannons, Lieutenant Colonel Humbert launched an attack on Bisandugu, the capital of the Samory Empire. But Samory doesn't face a single adversity. He was dealt a blow when the British stopped arms sales, in accordance with the Brussels Convention of 1890, which restricted the supply of arms to end slavery in Africa. However, determined to fiercely defend his autonomy, Samory does not let it get him down. He mobilized all his resources, gathering the kingdom's jewels and gold to buy guns, melting copper and brass utensils to make bullets, and recruiting new warriors to strengthen his army. Humbert, on the other hand, is facing fierce resistance. But, despite this fierce resistance, captured